Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 3 of Gridiron Across the U.S. Today is our Tuesday episode where we recap the Sunday and our Thursday and Monday slate of NFL games, and we have some bonus topics on the slate as well. So yeah, we'll get right into it.
Mhm. We're going to start it off with our underdogs and locks of the week review. So, my lock for last week was the Minnesota Vikings beating the Atlanta Falcons, and they beat them all right. They won by 21 points, I think. Close game throughout the start, but Kirk Cousins threw a couple key interceptions. He is now zero touchdowns and eight interceptions in his last four games. And one of my locks hit. How'd your lock do?
Yeah, my luck also hit as I took the Cincinnati Bengals on Monday Night Football. It was a questionable ending for sure with that blocked punt rule, but they still got it done. They still covered the spread, and that's all that really matters. I knew that with the season on the line that they were going to come through. And my lock hit. My underdog also hit this week
Oh,
as
yeah,
I took the LA Rams
right
to
there.
beat Buffalo Bills. And they did. It was an incredible game. Josh Allen set the record for most fantasy points in NFL history, or after 1950 when fantasy
Out
stats
of all
started there.
players or just quarterbacks?
Quarterbacks. Um, and they won. So I hit my underdog this week. What about you?
Ah, well, I bet against the Chiefs, and Justin Herbert goes down the field, kicks a field goal 4 minutes left. Second, I saw that my pick's screwed. Hit a doinked field goal in. Some type of rituals going down. They don't even practice at this point. They go to their practice facility and they pray to the evil underworld, and that's just all it is. Never bet against the Chiefs. So we went 3 for 4 in our picks. I mean, not terrible.
Yeah. Definitely a good week, especially when underdogs are always a toss up. So that we really should have hit on two, but we hit on one, and we'll take that. Now we'll move on to
Only a
the
2 point game though for the Chargers. So
so they did cover the spread, so we'll still take that.
all
All right,
right,
we'll move on to the
all
games
right, you
now.
got it.
I got the first one. All right, our first game we're talking about is the Minnesota Vikings at or the Atlanta Falcons at the Minnesota Vikings, which was your lock of the week. The Vikings, I think it was 21-21 at one point, was it?
Yeah, it
Right?
was tied in the third
But
quarter.
it was tied in the third quarter, but eventually the Vikings pulled away. Sam Darnold threw over 300 yards, 5 touchdowns. Jordan Addison had a monster day. Justin Jefferson also had a monster day. And they were able to pull away, and they really looked like true contenders.
Yeah, for sure. I think it just comes down to the Falcons all three aspects of the game. You showed me a chart earlier where what was that? Like points off
We'll throw
turnover?
it up. We'll throw it up on the YouTube video, but it was special teams. It was the ability. It was the like point differential from special teams or something like that. And the Steelers were first, by the way, but the Falcons were
Yeah.
tied for last with, I believe, the Titans off the
Mhm.
top of the head. So obviously, you're not going to be able to win games when your special teams is that horrific.
Yeah, but it was their defense mostly. I'm sure a lot of you saw the clips of their cornerbacks getting absolutely dusted in coverage. Jordan
That
Addison,
one where he fell down, I saw
yeah,
that.
he lost complete sight of the ball, fell down, and walk-in touchdown. That happened twice during that game. They couldn't keep up with Jefferson and Addison. Kirk Cousins, 38 or 36 years old, I think, at this point, on a big contract. As I said earlier, zero touchdowns, eight picks in 4 games. I think it's time to start Michael Penix. What do you think?
Yeah, I also agree. We'll throw another picture up there on the YouTube video from Sunday Night Football graphic. Um, I think it's time. I know they signed him to a 4-year, $180 million contract in the offseason, but when you're throwing zero touchdowns and eight interceptions over a 4 game stretch and you have a rookie eighth overall pick on the bench, I don't know why you wouldn't start him. So that's what I would do if I was the Falcons.
Yeah, and I think the result of this game shows Minnesota, Philadelphia, and Detroit are the three best teams in the NFC. And Minnesota believe they have one more game versus Detroit, and that game could decide our division here if they just keep staying hot. And I think they're true contenders when the playoffs come around.
Yeah, I agree. Um, on to the next game. We have the Steelers hosting the Browns. Now, it was close towards the beginning, but the Steelers are always slow in the first quarter. Jim Nantz was actually hinting at it in the broadcast if anyone was watching. that the Steelers are a second quarter team. They scored 10 unanswered, went into half, leading 13-7, and they pulled away from there. Got up to 27-7 at one point. Browns did score a garbage time touchdown, but Kadarius Toney fumbled the game away. Fitting. And the Steelers, I mean, they looked great, you know. They dominated after the slow start, like I said, and they really look elite in all three phases of the game. And that's why I believe that the Steelers can be a contender this year, unlike past years. They're elite in special teams. We'll throw that graphic up again. They're number one in the entire league on special teams. Their defense is elite. They're only allowing about 16 points per game at home and only have allowed 20 once, nothing above 20. And their offense, I mean, they're top 10 in points per game in the entire league. And that's been their kryptonite these past couple of years. They haven't been able to figure it out with a guy like Kenny Pickett at QB. But now Russell Wilson comes into town, figures it out, and they're averaging about 25 points per game. They put up 27 against what you know, a pretty good Browns defense. They're not having the best year, but they still have talent like Myles Garrett and those corners. I mean, what do you think? Do you think the Steelers are true contenders this year?
I think they are. They just have to clean up those little mistakes, like the trap game to the Browns a couple weeks ago. Your other two losses, who were those other losses to?
Yeah, like you said, they were to the Colts early in the season and the Cowboys back to back.
Yeah,
We
see,
haven't lost to a good team yet. We're undefeated against over 500 teams, but we got to figure out these Tomlin trap games. I don't know, you know, we'll see in Hard Knocks how they prepare for these worst teams, but it's something. It happens every year.
yeah, as I was saying, Steelers have a gauntlet coming up. I believe, don't they go to Philly? They go to Philly this week.
Yeah, so this week they're headed to Philly. Then they head to Baltimore to play the Ravens. Then they host the Chiefs on Christmas. So that's the Ravens, Eagles, and Chiefs in a 10-day span because of the Wednesday game on Christmas. And then they have the Bengals at home who are never gonna you're never gonna roll the Bengals. It's always gonna be a pretty good game when Joe Burrow's back there. So they do
Yeah,
have a gauntlet, but I believe in them. Once they're in the playoffs, and you know, if they somehow or not somehow, but if they hold on to this division lead and get a home playoff game, I truly believe that they'll have some success in the postseason because they do have one of the best home field advantages in the league.
yeah, for sure. Like these four games could determine are they contenders or pretenders. You win two or three out of the four. Say you sweep all four of those, then the confidence in the building just got to be through the roof, and you believe you can beat
100%.
anyone headed straight into the playoffs, and that's a big momentum boost. And sometimes in the playoffs, you need the momentum going in. Like last year, we saw the Eagles absolutely just collapse their last couple of weeks of the season, went from I believe the number one seed to the five, and then got destroyed in that wild card game by Tampa. You need to have momentum going into the playoffs, and this gauntlet could either make that or break that for the Steelers. And we're going to move on to our next game, which was the Eagles at Carolina. As always, a close game by Carolina playing with contenders. We've really seen growth out of Bryce Young. We discussed a lot of Bryce Young in our first episode, but he looked really good. He had one interception, though, but it's growing pains. It's his second season, and they would have possibly won the game if Leggett could have just held on to that touchdown. But he looks better than he ever has still, and I believe they just have to surround him with talent. And what I think next season is they could compete, and I believe they're going to win the NFC South next year.
Yeah, I truly believe that, you know, they're keeping these games close, but they're losing, so they're still going to receive a stud player in the draft. I truly believe they're going to be not only NFC South contenders next year, but I think they could make a run in the NFC. I don't see them beating a team like Philly or the Lions in the playoffs. I mean, they almost beat them here, but Carolina is playing some of the best football in the league right now, and they're going through like insane
Everyone.
team after insane team. But I like we mentioned, Bryce Young has really taken a step up after that Andy Dalton benching, and I think the Panthers just look great right now. I mean, you mentioned that Xavier Leggett drop. If he catches that, there's a good chance we're talking about the Panthers beating the 10-2 Eagles right now. And I think for a team that's 3-10, they're not playing like a 3-10 team right now. They're playing more like a 7-8 win team. It just their slow start kind of killed the momentum in the season.
Yeah, for sure. And we're going to move on to our next game after that. Not too much to talk about in that Philly game, but this one does have a lot of topics. It was the Dolphins against the Jets in Miami. Miami won that game as we saw, but their season, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. Two games back right now. What do you think about that?
Yeah, you know, they won, but they went to overtime with the Jets, and I mean, Jets aren't having a great year either. I just don't see how Miami's gonna get past either Denver, Baltimore, or Los Angeles for the final wild card spot. I think all three of those teams have all but clinched a playoff spot, and I think that will be the AFC wild card. So I do think the Dolphins are eliminated, but they look good with Tua. It's just about protecting Tua at this point because you can't lose your starting quarterback for 7 games of the season and expect to be a contender. You're just not going to make the playoffs, and it's just simple as that. Um, the Jets keep it close, but they're obviously onto the tank, and I wonder. They've mentioned that they want to take a QB because I'm hearing Rodgers is not returning to New York for
Mhm.
this next season. And I mean, they're 3-10, but there's so many bad teams this year that I believe they're sitting at about the seventh overall pick right now, as I will mention later in my mock draft. But I like a guy like Drew Aller if Rodgers stays around for one more year because he's a raw guy, 20 years old, strongest arm in the class. His footwork and accuracy is off, but that's something an NFL coach can easily teach him. Um, but after the reports coming out that Woody Johnson's 17-year-old grandson is the shadow GM of the Jets making moves based off social media, I don't know what we're gonna see out of the Jets this offseason. We could be seeing Travis Hunter, but or trade up for Shadur
I don't think they're
Sanders.
in a
So we'll be
position for that right now. Like your most of your draft capital is gone from that Devontae Adams trade, and what has that done? I think they have one win together, and they've officially been eliminated. That's their 14th straight year not making the playoffs. So like, what are they gonna do? Rodgers is pushing 40. He's about to be 40 this season. I think he turns 40 on his next birthday. And you're gonna let a 40-year-old start for your franchise. I think if he does play another season, he's out of New York, no doubt about it. So you got to get a guy, like you said, Drew Aller. But will Drew Aller declare? He's a junior right now. Then you got guys, not Carson Beck. We've stated our feelings towards Carson Beck here. Maybe Jackson Dart, like you said, trade up for Shadur Sanders. Then you got Jalen Milrow. He could fit the scheme there, but New York has not been a very good spot for young quarterbacks. We saw that
uh,
with Zach Wilson.
um yeah, the young quarterbacks have struggled under the pressure of the New York market, like you said.
Yeah, and we're going to get on to our next game here, which is your underdog of the week. So how about you take this one?
All right, Buffalo versus Los Angeles. I called this. The Bills are an incredible team. They can put up points against anyone, but when you get a team led by Matthew Stafford with their back against the wall, anything can happen. Like we saw, it was just an incredible game. I think the final score was 44-42. Not a scoregami. That score has happened one time before in NFL history. A little bummed about that for all you scoregami enthusiasts out there, but it was just an incredible game. That the first down QB sneak call with about 50 seconds left that made the Bills waste a timeout was a questionable call. I don't think you QB sneak that there, especially with Allen's ability to extend the play out of the pocket and run it in anyway or throw it. I don't like that call. And then they ran it back and got it the next play. But if they were able to save that timeout, they would have been able to kick it deep and use those timeouts stopping the run. Instead, they had to declare the onside kick, which is very unlikely to recover with the new rules. And it ultimately led to the end of the game. But I do think Allen is the clear MVP favorite running away with it at this point. And the Bills are a great team. I think they'll definitely be a Super Bowl contender this year.
Yeah, for sure. And like moving on to the Rams side of these things, that keeps them thick in the race. They're only, I believe, they're one game back of the wild card and also one game back of their division. And they control their own destiny. They go to the 49ers for Thursday night next week. We'll cover that more in the Thursday episode. Then they head to the Jets, who are tanking for the higher picks to get a quarterback. And then they got a home stretch versus the Cardinals and the Seahawks. So you win all three of those division games, maybe I don't think they're going to drop that Jets game. I see 4 wins in their schedule. If they win all 4 of those, they're gonna have the NFC West title belonging to them. And even if they don't, they'd be a wild card team. So they control their own destiny. And like you said, Stafford led team, one of my favorite quarterbacks of all time, against the wall. Like he's got the experience to lead them to the playoffs. And when they get there, I could see a run to the divisional or championship just because of their offensive talent. You got Kyron Williams, Puka Nakua, Cooper Kupp. The talent's there, and they're starting to put together the execution.
Yeah, 100%. I do think the Rams are looking good this year. And kind of, it's kind of a tale of two seasons. They were looking to sell Cooper Cup. They won that game against the 5-0 Vikings on Thursday night, and they didn't sell Cooper Cup, and Puka came back, and their season turned around after that. So, good stuff from the Rens. I like their odds this year. On to what's probably our least favorite game of this week: the Chargers versus the Chiefs.
Ruined our 4 for 4.
I don't know how the Chiefs keep getting away with it. It's just week after week, some ridiculous thing happens, and the Chiefs win. So I don't know how they're gonna do it. They the doink for the division for the ninth straight division title. It's just unbelievable, man.
I know, like, and then every third down, it feels like Mahomes runs out of the pocket. There's holding calls that aren't called. And then he finds some wide open receiver like 15 yards down the field. And then Chris Collinsworth just goes crazy. And then I get mad at my TV. It's a weekly occurrence at this point, and it feels like they play at home every single week. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, I guess the reason the Chiefs are so good is they have a historically high third down conversion percentage at 52%, leading the league. And when you get it done that often on third down, it's going to lead to success, obviously. So, but these past couple games have been just ridiculous.
I'm like, it's just, it's getting out of hand at this point. We saw them play
Yeah.
a good team in Buffalo, and what happened? They lost. But it seems like they don't play good teams very often.
Mhm.
Like the Chargers are a good team, but divisional game at home, and they only won by 2. Like, I'm giving them fraud of the entire rest of the year.
I hate to be biased, but a team like the Steelers match up really well against the Chiefs. It's going to come down to how the Steelers offense can fare against that Chiefs defense because when you look on the Steelers defense, Chiefs offense side of it, Steelers are second in the league on third down stopping percentage, just behind Detroit at 34%. Um, you look at the matchups: Joey Porter Jr. on DeAndre Hopkins, Dante Jackson on Xavier Worthy, Patrick Queen and Peyton Wilson on Travis Kelsey. I like those matchups. I don't know.
Bringing the Steelers
Um,
into everything today.
yeah, I'm a little biased, but it's all right. I think that Christmas game is going to be a good telltale of how the Chiefs stand compared to other AFC contenders because they lost to the only other contender they played in Buffalo. So
Yeah, for sure. And you want to get into your mock draft? If you follow our Instagram, Kevin made a mock draft, and you want to get into some of your picks.
we'll do the Monday night game first. Because we kind of skipped that on the notes
Oh yeah.
here, but it was a good game. I hit my lock of the week. It was a little suspect, but Jamar Chase won lots of fantasy managers playoff games or won their games. It's not playoff start this week, obviously, but I hit 216 in my league. CeeDee Lamb
Okay,
got me a
so we're
nice
flexing.
a
See,
combined 390 between my two teams because I had CeeDee Lamb and Chase Brown. So quite the week. Quite the week for my fantasy teams. How'd you fare?
so we might be in the toilet bowl, but I destroyed the number 1 seed, so that's all that matters. See, you got to put me in the playoffs. I beat the 1 seed. I deserve that automatic playoff berth, but instead, I'm fighting for not to get last place, which if I get, then you'll never hear from me again.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, on to my mock drafts. Now, I made my first mock draft of the year. What we'll do is every Monday we'll come out with a mock draft. So next, I made one this Monday. Dom will make one next Monday, and
Mock
we'll
draft
alternate.
Mondays.
Yeah, mock draft Mondays. So we'll throw if you're watching on YouTube, we'll throw the picks up on the screen right now. I'm not going to read them all off. If you're listening on Spotify, go check out our Instagram, Gridiron Across the U.S. _podcast, and you can see the picks there. But just to highlight some, I have the Giants trading up with the Raiders to take Cam Ward number one. I think that's their top guy. And I think they're going to do what it takes to get him. I have, trade compensation isn't what's important right now. So I didn't really go too much into that. I have the Raiders taking Shadur Sanders at 2 because if you haven't been noticing, Shadur Sanders tweets out all glory to God every time or it's like thank God or
Yeah.
something every time the Raiders lose. So clearly there's a fit between there. And with Antonio Pierce potentially on the way out, could we see Dion sneak his way into the NFL?
I mean,
I don't know. I don't think he should, but when you're playing in a market like Las Vegas, where it's more about selling tickets than actual success,
just really
I'm
fits
not
the Dion model.
I'm not gonna say I'm predicting it, but I could see it. And then I have Travis Hunter going to the Jaguars at number three. They jump the Panthers with a trade with the Patriots. We'll skip to my next pick I want to highlight here. Pick seven, I have Drew Aller to the Jets, like we previously mentioned, going over the Jets game. I think that's a good fit if they somehow keep Rodgers around. He can sit behind Rodgers for a year, develop behind him because they're similar players. I think Drew Aller's like 6'5" and Rodgers is shorter, but they play similar. They're kind of like gunslingers like that. Um, Heading on to pick 12, I have Ashton Genty to the Dallas Cowboys. I think,
Everyone's predicting that.
yeah, I think it's the obvious pick here. Um, Cowboys need a running back. I mean, Rico Dowdle's a good player, but their run game has not been great
You'd
this
rather
year.
have Rico Dowdle or the what I think should be the Heisman winner. I think it's an
Yeah,
obvious choice.
easy Heisman winner. I don't want to hear anything about
No,
Travis Hunter.
nothing.
We're we're seeing production out of Ashton Genty that we haven't seen since like Barry Sanders. Like these are some incredible
Don't
numbers,
forget
and I
about
think
Melvin Gordon.
Melvin Gordon that's a name that'll get him.
He had
But
like 2,000 yards that one season for Wisconsin.
yeah, that's no, that is true. Cam Scatabo is 200 yards for or 2,000 yards for Arizona State. But I don't care that Ashton Genty's in the Mountain West. He's putting up these numbers, and he sat out 8 full quarters of game because Boise State's just been blowing out teams. So that's
Because of
two full
him.
games. Yeah. So I think that's the right pick there. At 16, I have the Broncos trading up with the Arizona Cardinals, I believe, to get Luther Burden out of Missouri. He's a guy who's probably going to go further up, but I have him falling. And I think if the Broncos have the opportunity to get Bo Nix a playmaker like this, I think they do it. They're going to be aggressive, considering Bo Nix has played pretty well this year, and their receiver core is not very good. We'll put it that way. Um, my next pick I want to highlight is the Steelers
I knew
jumping the Ravens, trading up to 23 to select Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver from Ohio State. I think this is a perfect fit. Steelers love their run blocking receivers, and that's what he is. He's a great blocker, but he's also an explosive pass catcher, and that's what the Steelers need. I mean, outside of Pickens, we got Mike Williams and Ben Jefferson and
Mike
Calvin
Williams with his
Austin.
one catch on the year, I believe.
Yeah. Well, he had a few against the Browns, but it's been rough out here.
Yeah.
So I have the Steelers taking a receiver. And my last pick that I want to highlight is Colston Loveland to the Seahawks, tight end from Michigan. I know they have Noah Fant, but with a pass heavy offensive coordinator like Ryan Grubb coming from Washington, I think getting as many pass targets for Geno Smith as you can is the right move, and just have him air the ball out. And you still have Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. You can still run the ball. I think that will really complete the Seahawks offense and make them a true contender.
Yeah, 100%. And as we were previously a little bit discussing, we'll move on to our Heisman race and other
If
headlines
you want to see
from the
the
football world.
Yeah, if you want to see the rest of the picks, go check them out on our social media. Follow, leave comments on the post if you want me to explain some other picks. And yeah, so we'll move on to our bonus topics, like you were saying.
Yeah, well, as I was just saying, Heisman, like we firmly believe Genty's going to be the Heisman. Like
Genty.
Travis Hunter, I get it. He plays both sides of the ball. Have we seen that before? Yes, we have. Charles Woodson, ring a bell right there. Who else? Adoree Jackson played both sides of the ball. A lot of people have played both sides of the ball. But when you see a running back who's, as you previously mentioned, sat out 8 quarters of football, rushed for over 2,000 yards, and he has 29 rushing touchdowns on the season. Travis Hunter only has 1,000 yards, 4 picks, but he plays for Colorado. I ain't hard to find. I hate Colorado so much.
I'm not even a Colorado hater. I just firmly believe Ashton Genty's the more deserving player. I actually like Colorado, but I just think
Okay, a little
Genty's
bit of
putting
a
up.
switch up there from last year.
I liked Colorado last year.
Oh, I thought you hated them.
No.
Oh,
All right. Um, Another bonus topic. We're going away from football here is my least favorite player in the NBA, Nikola Jokic. with 48 and 56 in the last two games. He's dominant. I mean,
He's
can't put
too
it any
good.
other way.
He
Yeah.
doesn't even want to play, and he's putting up 50 bombs. And the rest of the Nuggets aren't helping. They lost one of those games by a little bit, but both games he was only 2 assists away from a triple double. So potentially could have had a 56-point triple double right there, and that would be talked about a lot.
Yeah, and they he's in the MVP race, but I don't believe an MVP is on what are the Nuggets, like the seventh seed in the West?
Yeah,
Unless they get their season around, he's not deserving of MVP. MVP goes to a player on a team who's actually a contender.
Joel Embiid. Yeah, maybe if he plays a couple games, he's probably already. The NBA has that rule where like you can't miss a certain number of games. I think Joel Embiid
He's
is
probably
already.
already ineligible.
I think he's already ineligible for those awards.
What a year for Joel Embiid.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into a little bit of a sensitive topic for us. As you can see by the hat, I'm sure everyone here, if you follow baseball at all, know that the snake Juan Soto decided to sign 15 years, I believe, $765 million with the New York Mets over the
That
six.
can go up to 805 mil because
That
the
could go
Mets
up to
have
805
infinite
mil.
money. I
Like,
hate the Mets.
I hate the Mets. See, we're Yankees fans here. Both I'm from New York, he's from New Jersey. Don't actually live in New York though, but second I saw that contract, or second I saw Soto hit free agency, I knew we were cooked because he did not want to be there for some reason. And why would you want to go to Queens? Worst place to go to.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's not that Soto didn't want to be on the Yankees. I just knew that Steve Cohen, no matter what the Yankees offered, they were going to get outbid. It's
Mm-hmm.
not a matter of, oh, the Yankees didn't pay what the Mets were paying. No matter what the Yankees paid, the Mets were going to pay more, and it was just going to go up and up and up, and he was going to be mad. I mean, I'd hope that he's going to resign, but I had a feeling. Um, and trying to be non-biased here, I mean, how does this, look for the Mets? They have a
They're going
nice
to miss
new
the
duo.
playoffs for the next 15 seasons. He's going to hit 150 on the year with 2 home runs.
Torn ACL first game.
Torn ACL done for the career. You know what? He's going to get suspended for PEDs in the first game of the season. Then they're going to ban him from the league.
But I think the Mets have a nice new duo with Lindor and Soto. And the Yankees now have some money to spend. They just
You know,
signed Max Fried to the largest left-handed pitcher contract in MLB history. About 30 minutes before recording this episode, the Yankees signed Max Fried, 8 years, 216 million, I believe. That's off the top of the head because we didn't have that down in the notes since it just happened. 218 mil, sorry. Um, I like that. The Yankees need more lefty pitchers as the Dodgers have, Dodgers kind of exposed us there. So I like that Max Fried signing. He's just been a consistent pitcher in 7 years now in Atlanta. He's 30 years old, but pitchers, have longevity.
yeah,
I'm
for
excited
sure.
about this one.
And they got Soto till he's 42. So hopefully he gets washed in the next 2 months, maybe. Hopefully. But
Yeah,
more
hopefully.
realistic, the Mets are going to continue to make the playoffs. I think they'll probably take a couple pennants and they'll definitely get a World Series win sometime. But fingers crossed they don't.
They're the Mets. They're cursed like the Jets. The Jets, Mets, and Nets, they're all cursed. I
Well,
don't think they're going to
can't
win
be a New York
anything.
team ending in ETS. And for our last topic, let's get into the college football playoffs. I used to live in Dallas, so I'm an SMU fan. So I am thrilled about this because I was scared for my life that night. I thought they were going to put Alabama in the playoffs because they always want to put Alabama in the playoffs. Let's make the most money. But let's give them America's team, Dallas's team, SMU, going to win the national championship.
Yeah. Going into Happy Valley, round one. Here come the Mustangs.
Yeah, here come the Mustangs. I could see a win in Happy Valley. I mean, it might be a little bit biased. Kevin
I
Jenner
don't know.
save us. And yeah, well, the rest of the playoff, I mean, they didn't get too much wrong this year.
Yeah, I think SMU was the right pick. And you can't the outrage in the college football world if they picked Bama after the whole Florida State incident last year would be pretty
Insane.
rough. I
They
don't really
couldn't.
have I don't have a college team. I'm kind of waiting to see what college I end up going to. So for this year, we're rocking with my Heisman favorite, Ashton Genty and the Boise State Broncos as my team.
Yeah, that's probably my second team. I'd like to see SMU Boise State National Championship. That would that would cause a lot of drama in the college football world.
Yeah, that would be great. All right, moving on to our final topic.
Oh,
We
don't
got the
tell me.
Vancouver Canucks, baby.
Oh my God.
How could we forget about
How
them?
could we forget?
Big news for the Canucks. Thatcher Demko is making his season debut tonight against
Let's
the St. Louis Blues. It's big news. I mean, Lankinen's been great, and now we have two Vezina caliber goalies. I think the Canucks are looking good. Miller skated with the team for the first time in I think 2 weeks, 3 weeks now after taking a indefinite leave. Canucks have been hanging in there. I think they're the third or fourth seed in the Pacific, but now they're getting their guys back. Hronik's out for I think till late January, but Besser's back, Miller's back, Demko's back. Petey's playing like himself again. I think the Canucks are gonna go on a little bit of a push here in the next couple months, and I think they're contenders. They took the Oilers to 7 with Ilya Mikheyev and Phil DiGiuseppe in the top 6. Are we serious? And teams are thinking the Canucks aren't contending this year. Defense is a little rough, but I could see them trading for a guy like Rasmus Anderson or Marcus Pettersson at the deadline, and I could see them winning it all. I don't know.
I think you're just a little biased, but the
No,
Canucks
no,
are
no, 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 no.
contenders.
No, Edmonton is the one team we have to get through. I'm not worried about Dallas. Colorado's a good team, but if we had beaten Edmonton, I thoroughly believe we would have beaten
Connor
Dallas, and then
McDavid.
we'll worry about the East Coast teams once we get to the Stanley Cup. But I think the Canucks look good this year. So yeah, that's all I've got.
Yep, that's pretty much all I got. Ready to wrap it up here?
Yeah,
All right, we're gonna call it off here. Thank you for watching Gridiron Across the U.S. We will be back next Thursday with our outlook
this
for Week
Thursday. This
15.
Thursday.
This Thursday, not next Thursday. We're not gonna bail on you guys like that. But we'll have our next locks of the week, underdogs of the week, and hopefully we can get a 4 for 4 this week. So that's about all I got. We'll see you in the next episode.